I'm Mark Halperin.
And I'm John Heilemann. And with all due respect to Jebs Eurotrip, hope you booked your hostels in advance. Happy National Best Friends Day, Mark. And our lineup tonight, Supreme Court defining, Joni Ernst swining, and Hillary Clinton's silver lining. But first, German dining. As the bare naked ladies might say, it's 1 week until Jeb Bush announces that he's running for president. But until then, he's getting his passport stamped. Tuesday and Wednesday, he's in Berlin. Thursday, he's in Warsaw, where he'll take questions from the press. And Friday and Saturday, he's in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and according to Wikipedia, a major cultural center. Mark, is this trip, on balance, more about opportunity for Jeb, or is it more about the peril that Jeb might face?
It seems better thought through than the disastrous Romney overseas trip.
A very low bar.
Yeah. It does not seem nearly as aggressive as Barack Obama's overseas trip that he made in 2008. I think that Jeb Bush at this point is set up to be not very ambitious, to get the check mark and maybe get some good pictures. But I don't get the sense that he's going to advance his cause, and he could easily be tripped up unless he's on his game in the Q&As that he plans to have.
Well, look, given the way that the other Republican, his rivals in the field have performed on their foreign trips so far, which is to say either they've made mistakes or they've, hidden, he's in a position to, it could be a great opportunity. He takes these questions, he hits home runs, he could come back and be able to say, I have a lot of foreign experience, I've been around the world, and I nailed these questions, nobody else has done that. But you're right. A lot of the ideas that his foreign policy seems to embody, and we don't know exactly what his, quote, doctrine is yet, but a lot of those ideas are not that popular in Europe. So if he comes out and makes a full-throated defense of some things that are associated with his brother, that could be big trouble.
I will be surprised if he comes out of this much advanced, maybe a little bit advanced. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back dinged up a little bit. He's got to go into this announcement with momentum, because right now, while he's still in a stronger position than the conventional wisdom, he could use a very big announcement.
Boost, yes.
A very big boost. And this taking the foreign trip, given that foreign trips, even the carefully planned ones, stuff can go wrong. He's taking a bit of a risk having the last big thing he does before his announcement be an international trip.
There's no doubt about it, and as we've noted, he's not handled the foreign policy stuff that well so far.
Right.
So again, the degree of risk is high, but again, I think the opportunity, if he were to really do well, would also be
He's
serious.
not a dumb guy, and he's prepped, so we'll see what happens. All right, before that formal announcement from Jeb Bush a week from today, Hillary Clinton will make her re-announcement. That's this Saturday at a big rally in Roosevelt Island, which is a slender part of Manhattan floating in the East River. When Hillary entered the race first time by video, it was under not so great circumstances. There were a lot of swirling questions then about the emails and about her foundation, but she chose to go ahead and announce anyway into those headwinds. Now, Clinton is planning a splashy kickoff this weekend and then a dozen or so policy speeches, but it's in the face of more bad news. Here's your roundup from the current edition of the Clinton Bad News Gazette. 42's Labor Secretary Bob Reich says Bill has to stop giving paid speeches. Her national favorability numbers are going in the wrong direction. Bernie Sanders almost beat her in a straw poll in Wisconsin this weekend, 49 for Hillary, 41 for Sanders. And questions are still swirling about her foundation. And, of course, there's that House committee investigating Benghazi that's trying to subpoena her, get her to speak, as well as a bunch of her aides. So, John, two big questions. The first, as she heads off to this Roosevelt Island rally, will she take the tramway or the subway? The other big question is, as she does this re-announcement, is she facing headwinds as strong as she did the first time around when she got in by video?
I want to be really clear about the first question. I do not like the subway under any circumstances, but taking a subway to get to an island is not bad news. So she shouldn't do that. Take the tramway instead. It's much more scenic. She has headwinds, and these headwinds have not relented. They've been now blowing pretty hard in her face for the past few months. I think, though, that with a big rally, a big announcement on Roosevelt Island, and then if she does what they say that she's going to do, come out with substance, come out with policy. She's been at her best so far in this proto-campaign when she's been talking about substance. So this is going to give her an opportunity to do what exactly what they plan to do for her, and to make policy pronouncements that will be popular with large parts of the Democratic Party and maybe with much of the country.
What was nuts from a political point of view in that first announcement was she was invisible except for all these swirling controversies. Then she did these events that created no news. Her two best days of the campaign so far, when she did her immigration speech,
right,
and when she did her
criminal justice,
and then the third one when she just did the thing on voting rights.
Exactly.
So if she starts doing these speeches, I think her campaign is confident that while the headwinds and the swirl of controversy continues, she can fill the void and create her own news.
And you see these stories, some stories, a story in the Wall Street Journal today about this. Jen Epstein's written about it. People say, oh, these are tricky policy questions. They might get her on the wrong side of certain parts of the Democratic Party. Like I say, I think she decided what policy card she wants to play. And when she plays that card confidently, I think it puts her in a good place.
She's in a stronger position than the Republicans realize right now with these speeches.
Hi, James. Good to see you. Germany has quite the lineup this week. Jeb is going there, and apparently his opening act is President Obama, who took questions after a G7 meeting in Bavaria today. He was asked about the Supreme Court ruling soon on Obamacare, and he projected uber confidence that the court won't rule against it and him. To support his argument, he used a handful of things that the White House would call facts. But are those claims actually factually true or just truthy? Let's take a listen.
What's more, the thing's working. You got 16 million people who've gotten health insurance. The overwhelming majority of them are satisfied with the health insurance. It hasn't had an adverse effect on people who already had health insurance. The only effect it's had on people who already had health insurance is they now have an assurance that they won't be prevented from getting health insurance if they've got a pre-existing condition, and they get additional protections with the health insurance that they do have. The costs have come in substantially lower than even our estimates about how much it would cost. Healthcare inflation overall has continued to be at some of the lowest levels in 50 years. None of the predictions about how this wouldn't work have come to pass.
Okay, Mark, so we wondered about how true those things were, so we asked Bloomberg's Alex Wayne, who has covered health care, and he said that for the most part, the things that the president said about the Affordable Care Act are true, or at least mostly true. I'm sure the RNC will disagree with that, and a lot of conservatives will claim that these numbers are all cooked in one way or the other. But those things seem to ring true to people who know most about health care policy. So given those facts, how strong is President Obama's hand if he gets an adverse ruling from the Supreme Court?
I think it's pretty strong compared to how it might be. I mean, look, there's still questions about rising premiums. You still meet people in the private sector, small business, large business, who don't like the Affordable Care Act. But the poll numbers suggest that people who have it like it. It has grown well. The costs are not so far overall exploding. So I think he's got a strong hand. I think in the end, because the Republicans still don't have unity about what to do, they may just have to say, look, we're going to fight this out in the election. We're going to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies to people in the federal exchange.
Well, yes. I mean, that's the big thing. President Obama's hand, I think, is strong for the reasons you just said. But it's also the case the Republicans' hand is very, very weak. Apart from, having spent now years telling the base they want to repeal and tear down Obamacare, if this adverse ruling comes out, the Supreme Court says on this, what is basically a technicality, that they're going to throw the entire health care system into chaos, Republicans are going to be, it's going to be incumbent on them to have an alternative. And that is the one thing Republicans have not had through this entire time, where they hate Obamacare, but they can't put forward anything like an alternative that's as solid as Obamacare.
It's hard to do at a time, even the patch to what to do if the Supreme Court rules against the administration. It's hard to come up with a plan without the trigger having already been pulled. Right. I think if the Republicans dominated Supreme Court votes in favor of the president, which the president made clear today he thought they should do and would do, then Republicans are really going to have to do some soul searching about the court.
Right. Well, and as I say, disarray in the health care market is not going to rebound to the Republicans' benefit.
Yeah. For 6 years, we've seen only fleeting glimpses of one of the more interesting relationships in Washington, the bond between Barack Obama and Joe Biden and their families. It's a relationship that was forged during moments of triumph and moments of adversity. Saturday, as President Obama delivered an extraordinary eulogy for Beau Biden, the spirit of the two clans' special ties of love, of emotion, and yes, of family came through as the president spoke about what it's like to be a Biden.
We do not know how long we've got here. We don't know when fate will intervene. We cannot discern God's plan. Michelle and I and Sasha and Malia, we've become part of the Biden clan. We're honorary members now. And Biden family rule applies. We're always here for you. We always will be. My word is a Biden.
It's an extraordinary service. The president's eulogy was beautiful and was not pro forma, and it reflected the fact that they're so close. Afterwards, Vice President stood up and basically demanded a hug from the president who came over. And that embrace symbolizes a relationship that you and I have written about, was forged along the way, but particularly when Beau first got sick few years ago, and the vice president rushed to Delaware to be with him.
Yeah.
And the president displayed a lot of upset over that.
They are, they're like, they couldn't be more different temperamentally, stylistically, in terms of their expressiveness. But they found this bond, and Vice President Biden talked to me about one time. He said, neither one of us is a phony. People can tell we're not phonies, and their non-phoniness, their authenticity, whether you like the guys or not, no one thinks they're fake. That brought them together. I know Vice President Biden also felt like that Beau Biden was one of the things that helped him understand President Obama, because Beau Biden and President Obama were the same generation, same kind of politician, and he understood them as in a weird, kind of a trio way. It helped him to get President Obama his partner. He saw it in his son. The closeness is genuine.
Yeah, and to have the President of the United States come and eulogize your son at a time when you need to be lifted up is just such an important thing. And the two families, as I said, President brought his oldest daughter and the First Lady to the event. And
Michelle and Dr. Jill Biden have become very close, doing stuff for veterans over the years. It's genuine.
Close,
you don't see it that much in politics.
Yeah,
yeah,
very lovely.
All right, coming up, our man at the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haass, to go over what's on the line for Jeb Bush on his Euro trip. We'll be right back.
Our guest tonight has the whole big world in his hands. Richard Haass, President of the Council on Foreign Relations. Thanks for coming back on. So Jeb Bush is on this trip. He's given one foreign policy speech already. We can get maybe some hints about things based on the schedule. Right now, if you were to define the Bush doctrine, as in the Jeb Bush doctrine about foreign policy, what would you say it is?
I think it's really way too soon to ask that question of any candidate. Indeed, it's hard to even answer that in some ways about a sitting president after 6 years. At this point, I don't think that's the right question. I think what you really want to do is how comfortable is this person, how knowledgeable is this person, and clearly what a trip like this is designed to do is just that. It's to allow him to bank information.
Can you put him anywhere at this point on the spectrum? People throw around terms neocon, realist, anything. Is he anything to you at this point?
Again, I think it's too soon, and you could cherry pick this or that statement and say that puts him more on this or that part of the spectrum. But I find it hard to silo or categorize him or pretty much anybody else yet.
He's given one big speech on foreign policy. He's been asked various questions on foreign policy, especially in relation to a couple big questions related to his brother. To your mind, as a substance person, if you were going to be a proxy for the voters, right? What questions would you want him to answer to help people understand what his worldview is?
What you want to get a sense is really a couple of things. The philosophy about how America should act in the world, alone, with others, the kind of unilateralism versus multilateralism debate. You want to get a sense of what's the most important. Is the purpose of American foreign policy to shape the foreign policies of others? Or do we want the United States to go around the world to try to change the internal nature of other societies? I think that would be a big thing. You'd also want to get a sense of the priority about foreign policy. Where does it fit vis-a-vis domestic? I mean, how do they view the balance, if you will, between the domestic policy and foreign policy sides of the national security coin? I think the answers to those three questions would give you a pretty good guide.
If you look at what happened when he gave his foreign policy speech, he said, "I'm my own man," on the big thing that's gotten the most attention on Iraq, of whether he's different or not. What are other areas of President Bush's either specific decisions he made, or Bush 43, or things about his foreign policy record or point of view where you think Jeb Bush will face tough choices, not because they're brothers, but just because he's the last Republican president, where he'll have to say, or he may end up saying, I would do this differently, or I'd have a different point of view?
Actually, I don't think there's going to be all that much of it. I think a lot of it's just going to be what's in the inbox. For all we know, between now and the election, there'll be a crisis in Venezuela. That country will implode. Or one of these days, some Chinese and Vietnamese or Chinese and Japanese ship will collide out in the South China Sea. Or Russia won't be content with what it's done in Ukraine and maybe will want to do something else. So I actually think at some point the foreign policy debate will be less in the rearview mirror and pretty much what people are saying.
Let's just take the issue of unilateral intervention or preemptive intervention. Is that something where you think, if you look at the Republican electorate or just the American people in general, a Republican candidate, whether it's Jeb Bush or someone else, needs to define themselves as compared to what the Bush doctrine was on that?
Maybe not in the abstract, but one place that exact debate could come up, Mark, would be North Korea.
Right.
Imagine sometime in the next 18 months The intelligence comes out that North Korea has managed to miniaturize warheads and could put them on missiles that could reach the west coast of the United States. If that doesn't happen during the campaign, it will happen during the first term of the next president. So it's quite possible that in one of the debates, people are going to say, are you prepared to live with that? Or under some circumstances, would you want to launch either a preventive attack to deal with a gathering capability or a preemptive attack if, for example, we receive warning that North Korea might be readying a launch? So I think that issue will be legitimate.
So he's going to be in Germany and in Estonia and in Poland over the course of this trip. Obviously all European, and obviously Putin and Russia are going to be big issues. As you watch him go along, especially in places where he's planning to take questions from reporters, what are you looking for to hear from Jeb Bush about that part of the world and what he's going to say about it?
Well, there'll be questions, obviously, about Ukraine, willingness to arm them and so forth. Second of all, how he would react to possible Russian pressure against the rest of NATO, and more broadly, how is it we try to close the gap between NATO commitments and NATO capabilities? What I think that's really, though, interesting is how you basically take a robust line against Russia without putting them in sort of an isolation. How is it you keep open the channel, say, to talk with Russia about Syria or Iran, at the same time you pressure and sanction them over Ukraine? And I actually think that's where it gets close to governing, because that's a real-world trade-off. You want to put pressure on them, but you still have to work with them.
As a political matter, it seems like you could not be too hawkish when it comes to Putin. But are there risks in terms of taking the furthest hard-line posture related to Russia in terms of actual governing, as you just were talking about?
Well, exactly that. That in governing, you've got to make trade-offs, and just say tomorrow we have to turn to Russia to deal with some terrorism issue, or say Syria, where Russia, I think, might play a helpful hand. There's more than 1,000 people from Chechnya and Syria. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that one day Mr. Putin wakes up and says, I got a real problem on my hands. I do not want these people to continue to go to Syria. How are we going to keep that open?
Right. Richard Haass, head of the Council on Foreign Relations, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, when we come back, we're going to take you on a little ride through Iowa on a motorcycle. It's the Joni Ernst Roast and Ride like you've never seen it before, because it's the first time they've ever held the event. Right after this.
Remember Joni Ernst? She's the one who castrates pigs. Over the weekend, she put together a cattle call, or a swine call, I guess, in Boone, Iowa. 7 Republican presidential hopefuls were in attendance. We sent our in-house auteur, Griffin Hammond, to capture the sights, sounds, and smells, mostly the smells, of what Senator Ernst hopes will become an annual event, her Roast and Ride.
I'm in Iowa, where they've designed T-shirts specifically for out-of-town media, and where Senator Joni Ernst has designed an event specifically for bikers and Republican presidential hopefuls.
Oh my gosh, good deal. How are you guys?
Who are sometimes one and the same. The freshman senator's inaugural summer event is called Roast and Ride, although I would have called it this. I'd love to mount a camera to one of these motorcycles, and Mike Vinson from Iowa City is happy to help me out.
Well, we came 100 miles, probably a little further than most people, so we got here about 9:30 or so. It keeps getting bigger. I'm guessing maybe 350, 400 now.
Safety first.
So that'll be a first for me, getting the police escort on a motorcycle. It was a great ride. Good route. You know, that's what makes the ride a lot of times are there a few curves, some trees, some shade. You know, it was very pretty scenery.
The camo shoes. She's just an old Iowa girl, and that's kind of people. I respect people who have those values.
That's Darlene Bookie. She's a farmer from 15 miles south of here.
Iowans want to see their candidates. They want to reach out and shake their hand. They want to ask that question face to face.
How you doing, buddy? It's not hunting season, is it? Nancy Dane, good to see you. We'll be watching you on TV this year. Thank you.
Shake hands with Scott Walker, and I respect all his policies. I think he's a godly man, and that means a lot to me.
We are cooking enough food for 2,000 people.
1,500 to 2,000 people.
The Roast and Ride is the conservative replacement of the Harkin Steak Fry, the Democratic event that ended last year with Senator Tom Harkin's retirement. Last year was the 37th Steak Fry, so it had grown a bigger audience. But I have to say, this event is more fun. I mean, the steak fry didn't have a bouncy castle.
I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is Iowa.
This is much fun.
Justin and Nick are students from nearby Iowa State University.
Once we found out the guest list, it was kind of a no-brainer to make sure that we took the day off from work or cleared our schedule to be here.
I'm really looking forward to hearing Marco Rubio and Scott Walker speak. I'm also interested to see what Rick Perry has to say.
We will make America great again. God bless you. Thank you, Iowa.
Of the 7 headliners, Scott Walker is the only one who hasn't yet declared his presidential run.
Love a senator who knows how to castrate a pig, ride a hog, and cut the pork from Washington, D.C.
They each get a quick 8 minutes on this stage. It's like 2016 speed dating.
Some of them I don't know enough about, so we're going to kind of compare, and so we can make a good, intelligent decision when we vote.
I could stand behind any of these candidates and be satisfied.
Agreed. Whoever can beat Hillary, really.
Yes, that's really what it's about, is who can beat Hillary.
Yeah. Yep.
With rain clouds overhead, the crowd got out of there pretty quickly after Huckabee's speech. But they'll be back soon. The Iowa straw poll is just 2 months away. Same fairgrounds.
You'll be at the straw poll as well?
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You'd encourage every presidential candidate you talk to participate?
I would. I would love to see them participate, and I'd like to see them visit Iowa as much as possible, too. Okay, we're ready.
All right.
We are ready.
Senator, before you go, I have to know, did you at least consider calling this event Hogs and Hogs?
No, because we want to welcome our Honda and Yamaha riders, too.
Well, HOG, is kind of an acronym for our Harley Owners Group.
Yeah.
And I don't ride a Harley, so I wouldn't fit that. So.
Hogs and Hogs.
That would have been good, too.
Right.
That would have been good, too.
Thank you. God bless you. Drive safe.
Griffin Hog Hammond, do us a favor. Next time, save some pig head for us, okay? We'll be right back. We've got some exciting stuff coming up on the show this week. Rick Santorum's here on this set, in this studio, and John Kasich the following day from the summit, the E2 summit in Utah. He'll be there with Mark Halperin.
Big week leading up to, of course, the Jeb Bush announcement, the Hillary Clinton announcement. Lots of interviews coming up here this week, more to come. Remember, we're on twice a day at 5 and at 8. See you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Sayonara.